So when most people hear the word kink, their minds jump straight to whips, chains, 50 Shades of Grey, something dark, something extreme, maybe a little dangerous. But what if kink isn't about pain per se, or even about sex? What if it's about something we actually navigate daily? Power, control, and the relief of letting go. Today we're stepping inside the world of kink, right into a sex dungeon with someone who has spent decades dominating that space. Most of us were given a cookie-cutter template for how to live, love, and succeed. But what if you don't fit that mold? What if you're ready to live a little differently, even if that makes you the odd one out?
We're Nyla and Cole, two people questioning the systems, the stories, and the identities that shape us. From politics to pleasure, culture to connection, this is where taboo meets truth.
If you've ever felt like a black sheep, cycle breaker, or someone who doesn't quite fit the cookie-cutter mold, then you're a deviant just like us.
So, kink is definitely one of those topics that everyone thinks that they understand until you actually start talking to people who live inside that world, right? And today I'm really excited to share that we're joined by someone who's spent decades doing exactly that. Tim, I'm really happy to welcome you. Tim Richardson, he's the house dom at Killing Kittens, and you've been part of this kink world for decades. You run 2 dungeons and 3 sex shops, if I'm right, and you've introduced...
two shops, 3 dungeons. The dungeons are outweighing the shops now. So I don't know what that says. I don't know what that says about the growth of kink in the last couple of decades, but yeah, more dungeons and shops now.
Okay, 2 shops, 3 dungeons. And you've also introduced a lot of curious newcomers to the whole world of BDSM for the very first time. Firstly, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Great to have you. Welcome, Tim.
One of the reasons that I really wanted to bring you onto the podcast was that you were actually the first person that introduced me to the whole world of kink for the first time. I thought I'd maybe share a little bit about that story and just kind of paint the picture of how that happened for me, because I definitely did grow up with a lot of shame and taboo around sex. My understanding of it was always that it's something that I do for others. It's not something for myself. And actually, if I enjoy it, then I should keep that to myself. It's probably quite a shameful thing to share with somebody else. And we first met at a party. You were there as the house dom, and there was a cross, the St. Andrew's cross, right? And I remember looking at it thinking, oh my God, whoa, that is next level.
I don't even know what a St. Andrew's cross is because I'm still innocent, Nyla. Can you paint a picture for us noobs, what we're looking at?
Okay, let me see. It's a large piece of furniture, like taller than me, and it's in the shape of a cross. It has a number of accessories on it where you can kind of have your wrists tied at the top and then your ankles tied at the bottom. So that's why the cross shape helps, right? Yeah. And then there is somebody who is, I guess, dominating you, your partner or somebody that is with you, that is facilitating an experience for you, right? Is this how you describe it, Tim?
That's right. Yeah, you described that really well.
Yeah.
Got it.
Or giving you an impact experience.
Okay, carry on.
You carry on.
Oh gosh, now I'm pressure. Okay, so firstly, I'm going to admit being a bit scared, like, oh my God, what's going to happen here? I remember it's a whole room, people can sit and watch, and Tim was there dressed in his 3-piece suit, looking very smart. And actually very approachable. I think I came over to you and I was just like, hi, I'm a baby. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, how does this work? I was scared, but I was also super curious about what is it that makes people want to have this experience with you, and why are they not scared? What's pleasurable about being spanked and all the other things that are going on here? And you were really kind, actually. We had a really great conversation where you helped me understand what it actually looks and feels like, that there's this pleasure-pain barrier that our brains can kind of move between. Do you want to explain what you shared with me about the breathing? And
Yeah, well, first, thanks for that description. And in fact, in the Killing Kittens environment, what generally happens is, I have people that are obviously watching what I'm doing from afar, like you did.
Yeah.
Most people, when they come up to me, say that they're nervous because they've never experienced it before. They wanted to experience it, but they're worried about going online on a kink dating type app and finding someone who will be able to give them that experience, because there is a huge amount of trust around the whole space of that, which we will talk about. But obviously in a party situation, you also watched what I had done previously before you came up to me. So there was a lot of trust there, and you kind of could see what was going to happen. So I generally try to make people laugh initially when they first come up to me, because I want it for them to be fun, you know, and I want to take this kind of scariness around the situation because we're having fun. You know, we are playing. So I just try to get them to laugh a little bit initially because I don't want to be this serious, like, this is so very serious. I'm this dom and you're the submissive. So I will try to get them to be a bit more relaxed and have a little bit of humour between us before I get into the things about consent and what's actually going to happen. And then the next thing people will normally say is, you know, my pain threshold, I have no pain threshold whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, did you say that? Did you?
I was like, oh, I'm told, baby. I bruise really easy. Yeah.
You know, don't hurt me. Don't be too hard. And I was like, look, okay, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll take it very, very, very slowly. And it's funny because the people that normally say, oh, my pain threshold is really low, normally are the ones that end up being the impact really hard because it's built up over a period of maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So what I would explain is that first it's consent. You know, can I touch you? Is it okay if I cuff you up? Is it okay if I put a blindfold on? Are you okay with me impacting you with these toys? And what I will say is, like, I will very, very, very slowly build up the impact on you. That will be within this area of your body, which will be generally their bottom. Their bum cheeks is generally where I'm going. I will very, very slowly build this up. The blood will raise to the surface of your bottom, so your bottom will warm up. So basically the slow bit is also warming someone's bottom up because you want the blood to raise to the surface and warm up a little bit.
Right.
And then very, very slow, I said, and what I'll do is when I impact you, you're smiling. Well,
I'm just laughing at Cole's face. He's taking notes.
Mental
notes.
I really.
So
He's like, all right, you prime it. You prime
Yeah.
it.
doing
I feel like I'm watching a cooking show, like Julia Child is like, and then you soften the chicken.
So very, very slowly, the impact is built up. And what I will say to someone is, look, when I hit you quite hard, which I will know when I'm going to hit them a bit harder than I have done up to that point, I want you to breathe through that impact. And they go, breathe through what you're going to go. Well, supposing you're going into an ice bath or you've jumped into a cold swimming pool, when you just breathe through the impact pain. And I will stop because I'm watching how they're reacting. Remember, they've got their back to me now, but I can see them breathing.
Yeah.
And I'll wait for them to breathe through it, and then I will do it again. And then I will let them breathe through it, and then I'll do it again. And then I'll do it again. And then what happens is, if you breathe through that impact pain, maybe 6 or 7, 8 times, your serotonin, your oxytocin, your adrenaline, all the pain chemicals start to fly through your body. So basically, your brain thinks that you've tripped up and fallen up a stairs or something like that. Your brain doesn't know you're actually at a sex party. You know, it thinks that you're being hurt. So those pain chemicals that kick in, what happens is you breathe through it, people start to buzz off of those chemicals. So people start to feel quite, you know, euphoric. They feel like they're floating. They feel that they've gone into another bit of space, which is called subspace. And subspace is where someone is in that state of mind, an altered state, physically altered state, because they have breathed through impact pain over a period of time, and now they're actually riding on these chemicals that are going through their system.
It's like being high almost, right?
Absolutely. People say it's like they feel like they've had a drug, or they feel like they've had an ecstasy pill, or they feel completely euphoric. And in fact, even at some points, and it's happened at Killing Kittens, where I've literally had to take someone off and sit them down because I've had people faint. That's happened to me on a couple of occasions. I realised I've actually passed out. They fainted.
Whoa.
So that's a bit scary.
Is that something to worry about?
So generally what's happened is that I normally have a tin of Coca-Cola nearby, which I call my red ambulance. I always have my tin of red ambulance nearby because generally what has happened is their blood sugar level has dropped.
Right. Yeah.
That's what's happened. That's all that's happened.
I have had an experience where I've come off the cross and I can't hold myself up anymore. Like my arms and legs have kind of flopped.
Yeah.
And then I've had to like be seated somewhere and quickly fetch some water and stuff. But honestly, the first time it happened to me, I was like, oh my God, it's so embarrassing. Like something's wrong with me. And then I realized, actually, no, this is like the high of the experience.
So you've done this quite a bit since we met.
A few times. I mean, you definitely opened...
You've cheated on me, basically. I was just...
Tim, you were always my first.
Oh,
You're always going
thank
to
you.
be that first.
You set her on a path of greatness.
No, actually, I have told a lot of people about the experience I had with you because there are a few things that really stood out for me. And I think it was a little bit of a pivotal moment in my own kind of self-discovery because I have to say, I probably was like 97% sure I was going to hate it before I got on.
Really? Was you?
Like, yeah, this is not going to be for me. Without having ever tried it, without really understanding much about kink at that stage, you know, relatively to now. And I think when I got on there, firstly, it really helped that you're a professional, right? On dating apps these days, I think most women are inundated with men telling them that they are DOMs. And I think I was at a point where I was like, if anyone else tells me they're a DOM, like, it's too much. And I just had a little bit of an aversion to it, even though I didn't really know what it was. Part of me was like, well, I can't really judge it because I've never tried it. And then I saw you at the party and I was like, all right, this is probably the best way for me to try it because as someone who doesn't have an ulterior motive and this is a safe space and I can see how this feels. And a couple of things that stood out. So firstly, as soon as the mask went on, the eye mask went on, suddenly it felt really intimate, even though we're in a room full of people. And a bunch of the people in there are literally just sitting on the side watching what's happening on the cross. Right. So I think I was very aware of that before I put the mask on. And I was like, I don't know, self-conscious and all of those things, right? As soon as the mask went on, it was almost like all I could hear was your voice with a little bit of a buzz of the background, but I was tuned into you and what you were saying. The second thing that surprised me was how I was really directing it in many ways, because you had showed me, you know, how to kind of wiggle my fingers to say slow down or speed up, depending on which hand I wiggle.
We don't have a safe word there because obviously the music is so loud.
Right.
I wouldn't be able to hear it, so I have to go on non-verbal cues, which is also part of the thing I explained to you. You are in control here, it's not me.
Yeah.
You know, if it gets a bit much, just do that with your left hand, stop it, do it with your right hand. So you knew by that point you were the one in control.
So at that point I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I am controlling this. And then there was a moment where you stopped and you said, I'm not going to continue because I can't see you breathing through it. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I guess I was forgetting to focus.
Yep.
I was like,
It's important.
You know, a lot of new things were going on there. And then you were noticing that I wasn't breathing through it in the same way. And I felt a sense of agency, even though I was the one restrained. And I think that was also new for me. It was like, oh, okay. It felt to me that I had really simplified what this dynamic would be like, where the person who is in the dominant role is basically abusing me or has the opportunity to kind of take advantage of me. And actually, the power. Yeah. And this really challenged that for me. And then the final thing was the level of impact that I think in the end, you know, using the flogger and whatever else. And I remember thinking, I didn't think that would feel nice. And it didn't look to me that was going to be a pleasurable experience. But actually, in context and with all of those other senses feeling heightened, there was something quite soothing about impact, which seems like an oxymoron in itself, right?
Absolutely. And did you feel, because what I try to do is obviously I switch it up and switch it down as well, so you don't know what is going to happen to you next, whether I'm going to touch you with a feather or I'm going to touch you with my hand on your back or something like that. What was that energy and that anticipation between those gaps where you didn't know what was going to happen next?
I mean, I think that's the electric part of it, is that like the anticipation is built so much that your body is almost like desperate for touch in that moment. And there's actually very minimal touch, I would say. It's a lot there's almost like very little touch, and then the touch that does come becomes so heightened. So it's like actually bringing somebody to a state of intensity by not touching them very much at all.
At all. Yeah, which is like the irony of that, isn't it? It's quite mad. Without any touch at all, you were literally... And I always get probably the biggest reaction to touch that I get in that situation after someone's been on that cross for maybe 5 or 10 minutes will be if I just literally get my finger and very gently just touch the back of that person's neck. Just my God. Very gently. And they just go, it's unbelievable. The reaction to it is, I wish I had that reaction on every day, you know, during any other normal situations. Barely touch. I mean, barely touch.
Yeah.
And they just go, oh my God.
For me, it's like it's the sensations, right? So it's like the scratch and the pinwheel and the feather. Oh my God, that feather just kills me. But what that can do to you and how that can kind of activate your senses. It doesn't even have to be in an erotic way in many ways. It's just like,
No, it's not.
do it over my hand and it would
Yeah,
create
yeah,
this,
it's not. In fact, it's not that in an erotic way. It's not necessarily that erotic. It's just because your senses are so heightened at that point
yeah.
that literally, if someone could just blow on you gently, it would just send you crazy.
Exactly.
It would send you crazy. Yeah.
So I'm learning about subspace in this conversation and why Nyla was surprised to enjoy this. Tim, can I ask you what you enjoy about being a dom in this role? Where does the pleasure come from on your side?
The pleasure. I think it's a theatre. It's a theatrical, immersive experience. That's the way I see it, and it's not about me having power over anyone. It's about me giving someone the vessel and the space of trust to be able to enjoy the experience of this. Because it looks like from the outside, if someone's watching, that I'm the one with all the power and I'm not. For me, respecting someone's boundaries, obviously 100% is the most important thing.
Sure.
So I see it as a very performative experience. What I do is I put myself in the space of the person who is in the submissive role. I'm in a dom role, they're in a submissive role. So I see it as I'm role playing. I'm almost like an acting experience, an immersive acting kink experience. This is the way I see it. So what I do is I put myself in the place of the person that is in that submissive role. So when I'm doing the impact and touching and stroking or whatever I might be doing, I'm imagining what it's like to be that person. So I'm saying to myself, if I was there now, what would I be expecting to happen now? What would be the most exciting thing to happen now? So I kind of immerse myself by watching, like I said to you, I'm watching someone's breath, I'm watching their physical reactions to stuff, so it's a very focused, immersive experience for me to do that and fun. And it's great to see someone like you experience something like, I've never done this before, I'm a bit nervous. And then for them to come off and go, oh my God, that was amazing. Yeah. It's great to be able to give someone that experience.
Well, Tim, tell us a little bit about your journey of living off script. How did you end up building a life inside this world?
It started when I was probably quite small, actually, and my father used to work in Soho. Wasn't in the sex industry in Soho. He was a newspaper salesman, and I used to sit in the front of his car when he would deliver these newspapers. So I would be sat in my father's car while he would jump out and deliver these newspapers to these various newsstands, and his area that he worked in was Soho. So I was just constantly sat in the car looking at these sex shops with these frosted out windows and unusual people coming in and out, and unusual women walking around as well, because it was a red light area. So I kind of got fascinated from that moment, I think, and it never left me.
So did you start off your career in this space, or did you do something else first and then pivot?
I worked in the entertainment industry when I was in my teens. And then I met somebody in a nightclub when I was about 20, 21 years old, something like that, who was incredibly successful within the sex industry. He was in his early 30s, I was in my early 20s, and I become quite good friends with him and realised what a huge business that he'd built around sex and sex shops, particularly in publishing. And I thought, well, I wanted to run my own business. I didn't really want to work for anyone else. I wanted to own my own business. And I thought, well, I had another friend of mine whose family owned greengrocery shops, food shops. And I decided that I would find sex more fun to be in than food. And I think it was either food or it's either food or it's, food definitely sells because people have got to eat, and sex definitely sells. So I just decided to go the sex route than the vegetable route, basically.
It's human essentials, basically, yeah. Which is more fun. I think
Yeah,
you made a good decision.
I think so as well. I'm much happier with the decision I made. But it was definitely that. It was like, what are people's needs in life? What do people need or can't live without? What can't people live without?
And did your family think it was a bit wild that you were going into the whole sex industry space?
Not really, because in fact, my older brother, who's 10 years older than me, was a photographer. And he was just about 15, 16 years old.
Right.
And he got a job working in a studio in Soho, working for a photographer called Harrison Marks, who happens to be an adult magazine producer. He was actually quite a famous guy back in the day. He used to produce these black and white magazines of shots of women. In these magazines, you couldn't see any pubic hair, wasn't allowed. That was against the law. So they were just topless photographs, basically. That's all they were. And my brother got a job as his assistant. My brother used to actually have to bring work home. And we shared a bedroom at the time.
Right.
And we lived in North London. And he had a little photographic lab that is set up in our bedroom. And his job was to airbrush or mark out the pubic hair on these photographs. Because it was against the law. So this would have been, I was about 6 or 7 years old. Probably completely inappropriately, but was with my brother in our shared bedroom with him airbrushing the pubic hair out.
Working hard.
Before he took them back.
The law, you know?
Yeah. But my mum, bless her heart, was to share an interesting story. We had some people come in to fit some carpet. We lived in a masonette in North London, in Islington. And she had these couple of guys turn up. I wasn't at school for some reason. And she could hear them banging and fitting this carpet upstairs in the landing outside the bedrooms. And she said, and it suddenly went all quiet. And she wondered what was going on. And she came up the stairs, and I had found these contact prints of these photographs. She found me with these carpet guys trying to sell them the unairbrushed photographs. So it was always, it was
Always a
hot
salesman.
stuff.
Yeah.
It was hot stuff. So yeah, I was selling porn when I was 7 years old, basically, in a kind of weird way. I don't know.
Yeah, so you never really had to. Yeah, you never had to like push past the stigma of sex work. It's just sort of been ever present.
It was ever present in my family, you know. So that's why it wasn't a big deal for me to go into it. You know, it really wasn't. It was a really acceptable thing in my family that it wasn't a taboo, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
I think that's what sometimes probably even stops some people even moving into any part of the sex industry, even if they would like to, is the family reaction to what their choices are. Maybe more people would if there wasn't such a stigma around the industry. I think it's obviously less now because you've got platforms like OnlyFans and which I really don't like seeing the younger people online telling people how much money they're making just by doing this, because it becomes very attractive, the kind of numbers that they crunch, which I'm sure some of them are genuine. I'm sure a lot of them aren't, but it's just a huge financial dangling of a carrot.
Yeah.
It's a way to lure a lot of people into an industry that I'm sure still, no matter how much sex sells, it's still probably a pretty difficult industry to succeed in, right?
Yeah.
What really strikes me about the way that you were raised is probably very different to a lot of people out there. Like you said, they grew up with a lot of shame, and British culture is very, very much about being reserved and being elegant and being a lady in public and, all of those types of things. And it's not very explicit or loud about sex normally. So the picture that you paint of how you grew up is very different, and I would say very off script, as we like to call it. And so I can see how your exposure to kind of kink culture early on led you into these different spaces where you now run dungeons and everything that entails.
I mean, back in the day, even up until about 10 years ago, any type of adult magazine in a newsagent was on the top shelf. I don't think they still exist, actual adult magazines, but they were very much, out of reach, which is like even makes it more appealing to, like, oh my God, what is that? What is that up there? I can't even reach it. It's always been dark, mysterious, like, no, you can't do that. And I mean, that just attracted me, all that. Someone says to me, like, you really shouldn't go down or go in there. I'll probably be the first person to go down there and go in there. So,
Right. So for you, the more taboo, the more appealing growing up. That was sort of the breadcrumbs that led you to this. I mean, for me, I'd say it was like the exact opposite. I was such a good little goody two-shoes. Maybe Nyla too. It took us a lot longer to learn how to be deviant. So I'm kind of jealous that you were like ahead of the game.
Yeah. You just been living your best life all these years, Tim.
Right.
Good for
I know
you.
the best life. It's very open.
Yeah.
And when I think about it now, I'm a bit like, what was going on there? But no, it was absolutely fine. There was never any shame connected with me and sex and going into that industry.
Wow.
Well, okay, again, I'm the innocent person in this conversation. I know maybe some listeners won't believe me because I talk a big game, but I'm going to be here asking the dumb questions. So you say you have 3 dungeons. I mean, what the heck is a dungeon? What happens in a dungeon?
Well, what happens in a dungeon stays in a dungeon.
Indeed, indeed.
So what happens in a dungeon? Well, obviously, I mean, it depends on who has hired the space. You know, so we could have a range of, you know, maybe professional dominatrixes, female dominatrixes who are seeing clients during the day. So basically a dungeon is a safe, immersive space where you can go and you can play. And it has all the equipment. You have like spanking benches, St Andrew's crosses, which is what we spoke about at the party, you know, sex slings, floggers, paddles, blindfolds, chains, a medical room, maybe if you want to do medical play, F machines, which are machines that fuck you machines.
Sure.
All kinds of equipment, all kinds of stuff. It's full of all that stuff. Dildos, strap-ons.
I can tell from Nyla's face that even she hasn't heard of medical play. Is that like playing nurse, or is it a little more intense than that?
It can be nurse or doctor, Cole, depending on what role you're playing.
Indeed. Okay, great.
Yeah, you know, it's a space that is fully equipped BDSM play space that is very immersive. Have sound system, you can play music. Generally mirrors on the ceiling so you can watch yourself. And it's a place where you can go and you can try out whether you have never done it before. You could hire it for a couple of hours with your partner and go down there and just experiment and just see if you're even this is before you've gone to one of my shops and bought, you know, a flogger or anything like that. You can actually just try it out before you even see if you really like it. So you'll have people that hire the spaces that hireable by the hour during the day, or you can hire it overnight and stay overnight. And they're very comfortable, quite luxurious places to stay. You've got very nice bedrooms where you can step out away from the actual play areas, the dungeon and medical areas, and go into your bedroom where there's still a mirror on the ceiling. Obviously, there's going to be a mirror on the ceiling because you're still there to have some fun.
Yeah.
So, but you can step out of the actual dungeon areas and go into a bedroom and watch Netflix and have a cup of tea. You know, and go to bed.
Talking.
Now we're talking. So you're not literally sleeping surrounded with all that stuff. You can dip in and out during the course of the evening if you want to. And, you know, these areas are on booking.com, Airbnb, but they're also on our own Brighton Dungeon website where you can book it directly. So, yeah, they're fully equipped kink play spaces because this stuff is not cheap, right? You know, I mean, if you was to, who is going to honestly have a St Andrew's cross and a spanking bench at home, unless you've got lucky enough to have a third or fourth bedroom that you can lock and keep locked. And there are, you know, suspension slings and electric hoists, and you'd have to be really into this if you're going to have that in your home, you know?
Right.
Sure, it's great. Try before you buy. It's sort of a sample set of the dungeon.
Yeah.
And you know what I love about it also is that most people hear kink and they think of something dirty and gritty and a dungeon even, you know, it sounds like something underground that's going to be gross. You know?
And it's not.
Yeah, this sounds like basically a well-equipped luxury space to explore like non-vanilla kinds of sex and everything on a spectrum, right?
Absolutely. And do you know what? We have these boxes where part of the instructions, if you stay there, is that anything that you touch whilst you are there, you put into a box where the cleaners will sterilise and clean those items after you have checked out. And sometimes the cleaners will go in and there will be like one little paddle in the box because that's all they've just gone in.
Enough.
That was enough. You know, there'll be one little paddle or maybe a blindfold, you know, and then other days it'll go in and the thing is full. They've literally tried every single thing they can lay their hands on. So, you know, it's a different experience for different people at different points of their kink journey, I guess, you know, so which is always interesting.
Yeah, so how does a person figure out just how kinky they are? I mean, do you reckon someone should already sort of have a sense if they're sub or dom, or Would you recommend they sort of experiment to figure these things out?
Well, it only feels kinky the first time you do it, Cole. All right. After the first time, the second time doesn't feel so kinky. So, you don't know until you know, and you just try it out. People call them switches, so people can go from the top to a bottom. So a top generally is the dom, the bottom is normally the submissive, but you can switch around and play around to find out, do you like that? Did you like that? I think you just have to start, Cole. And I think you really have to have. Come on, you really just have to have. Come on, Cole.
I'm ready. I just need someone to guide the way, just like you guided Nyla.
I think we should have a little "Come on, Cole" as that thing for someone to start doing kink. Could be like the umbrella term for people to start kink could be "Come on, Cole."
Now, when you say "Come on, Cole," I'm not sure how you're spelling that.
Not with a U, not with a U.
Sure.
All
okay,
right?
We can do this. Cole. Thanks for clarifying.
So, I think it's a case of where it starts. It starts with communication and an honest conversation with your partner, I would say. If you are in a relationship, you do have a partner, I think sometimes people are worried about expressing what they really would like to try out because they might be worried that they're going to be judged by their partner.
Yep.
Might be there don't want any shame around it. Yeah. So they're a bit nervous about actually saying what they would like to do. It all starts with an honest, open conversation between you and your partner when you say, I just want to give this a little try. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Would you like to try that? I think if anything, that's where the shame probably stops people. They're worried about being judged. Particularly if you've been in a relationship with someone for quite a while, maybe. I mean, and the interesting thing about this is, I think in kink dating, you're going to hopefully have really honest communication conversations around what you're going to be doing, also with consent and boundaries. When in normal style dating, that communication and that honesty around what you like and what you don't like doesn't really happen. It's funny in normal, vanilla kind of relationship, the term vanilla is whatever. But, I find with any kind of kink kind of relationships or early doors or someone meets at a like a kink meet-up, hook-up party or something like that, the conversation is going to be a lot more honest right from the gate than trying to, if you've been having kind of regular... So I hate the thing regular, vanilla, because it puts kink into this other place.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you're not going to have that kind of conversation. You're going to talk about what you watch on Netflix and do you like curry or Thai food? Or not like, do you like to be spanked or you're submissive or you're dominant? The conversations within the kink community are a lot more honest and transparent and boundaried. But you don't have that in general normal dating. Doesn't really happen.
I think it's a great point, actually, because I think the mainstream understanding of kink has been influenced by, 50 Shades of Grey and all of these movies that actually never show the kind of consent and negotiation that happens before, kink dynamics kick off between people.
Yeah.
I guess it must not be like sexy to film that part of the story, or they like to, build on the stereotypes and the tropes that this is one person taking advantage of the other. It's often really unhelpful, right?
Yeah, and he was grooming and he was coercive. And so, although, I think it did open up kink to the world without a doubt. And within the industry, I absolutely saw the huge benefits it did for it.
Right.
Wow. The way he went about it wasn't that great. That was the thing that was the problem with it within the community at that point, was where was consent and boundaries,
right?
Which are really the two important pillars of this. So they dropped that out, but I guess that doesn't make good film,
Right.
But it also gives a terrible message out there for this is how you do this.
Yeah.
But they couldn't. I don't think they could just make that sexy. It had to be filmed the way it was filmed to be and have the kind of, excuse the pun, impact that it did have and the tension. But unfortunately, they missed out the most important conversation that they should have had.
Well, and I think it plays into this whole notion that talking about sex is inherently unsexy, that you just have to let it happen. But what I'm hearing from you is actually like the more you talk about it, the more you discuss your wants and needs, the more you plan things out, you can reap a lot more rewards. You actually get a lot more payout if you have that talk up front. So it's actually the opposite. Like the more you talk about it, the sexier it can be.
Yeah.
And then you'll find out, I didn't realize that you even thought about that. And you go,
Right.
yeah, actually, I did.
Right.
You know, and then well, can we talk a little bit more about that? And then obviously once you start going down those little avenues of conversation, you'd be surprised what can come up, you know? And there's your starting point. Your starting point is an open, honest communication. That's it. And then you see where that goes. You was asking where you start here with Cole, isn't it? What is it? Come on, Cole.
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 So the thing about it is also this other thing about your kink is not my kink, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? You don't have to be into this. There's nothing wrong with not being. I think with the conversation we're trying to have here is that, you know, if you are in the slightest bit interested, how would you go around it? But some people don't want to be impacted. Some people don't want to be tied up. Some people just like, you know, regular hot sex with their partner. It's okay not to be into it.
Vanilla sex is still hot. We need to not
really
make this about one or the other.
You know, vanilla sex has been going on for a long time. It's been really popular, you know? So
It's the test of time.
it really has stood the test of time. And it's only now because we're having these conversations because of movies like this, and you've got apps that, you know, people are saying that they're dominant or kinky or whatever they might
On
be.
these tests that you can do. It's just,
Kink tests, you know, what's your kink test, you know? And it's only because we're all talking about it because this is what it's about, and this is like we're having a conversations about it. But you know what? It's all right not to be into it. It's absolutely fine. You know,
I think that's great. I think that's great that you say that as well, because I think when you start to explore these things, there's almost this like unsaid pressure that you now need to like them.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is in research for this episode, I was sent a spreadsheet with over 300 kinks on it.
Oh, yeah.
The sex menu or the sex spreadsheet, I think. And I think what I was really struck by was like what a spectrum it is of like sensation, symbolism, identity, aesthetics, and power, of course, right? Impact and power. But it's everything from like tickling to torture.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Everything from like sensory play to symbolism. So the thing I love about the spreadsheet is, and for me, this is like exactly what ethical kink culture looks like, is that you fill it out with your partner. And so you each have a column. And there's like color-coded legend for how you fill this out of like, this is absolutely something I need, or this is something I wouldn't mind trying, or, you know, I need this as part of my aftercare. And it's all kind of color-coded. And there's so much transparency and, you know, the uncertainty is taken out of it. You're not like guessing like you might in kind of general vanilla dating where you might eventually end up in bed together and you're thinking, oh, I hope this is going to be good. And I wonder where it's going to go and how far we'll go and what we'll try. Whereas with this, it's like, I mean, it's negotiated, but it's also just it's a transparent discussion up front of like, look,
well, it has hard limits, soft limits, you know, which is the boundary, safe words, aftercare, you know, and tickling. Yeah. Carl, what do you reckon? What do you reckon? Tickling? Can we start with tickling?
Oh, I think
you like a tickle.
now we're talking. See,
we have a little tickle on Netflix, maybe.
Oh gosh, speaking my language.
Yeah,
see?
Look at
Don't
that.
Yuck my yum. I mean, I really quite liked what you said earlier about let's not separate like kink from vanilla, because tickling doesn't sound too hardcore. We would mention some of these other things we've talked about, but I think that even in the most vanilla sex, we still see power dynamics and we see people enjoy playing with power. So it's really not crazy when we talk about the power dynamics that might happen in a dungeon, because this is something anyone who's had sex can relate to on some level. And it's just that discussing how far people might want to push it and the ways we push it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and that's by experimenting. You know, like even in a power dynamic with regular sex, someone will initiate. Is that initiator the one that's taking on the power? You know, is the initiator is the one that's actually taken the dominant role, with male or female, in that context. So it's there. It's just not in a like, oh, I'm a dom, you're a submissive, we're in a sex dungeon, you know. But I think it's just a matter of experimenting. And I have noticed this in the retail environment that I've worked in for many, many, many years, that particularly after the 50 Shades of Grey film, you know, everyone was like, oh my God, this book has come out. We noticed a huge increase in the selling of blindfolds, paddles, floggers, all the stuff that was in that book, everything. You know, we had sold kink products up until that point, but when that book came out, the sales went through the roof nationally. You know, there were certain items we couldn't even get from our wholesalers because everyone sold out so quickly that no one could get it quick enough to sell it. So in that context, it definitely, without a doubt, brought kink into the light, if you want to say, the darkness of kink into the light.
Yeah.
And since then, it's just that narrative has built from that movie, But I have noticed that as the years have gone on now, we sell more of that stuff than we ever have done. And to people that are, late teens, early 20s even, buying, ball gags, paddles, floggers, kink starter kits, even in their late teens.
Wow.
So it's quite surprising. And that's something that I never saw. I never saw 10 years ago. I mean, young people of that age wouldn't even have been interested in buying stuff like that at that age, but now they buy kink products very young.
Okay, thank you, 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, exactly. Even though, like I say, there were certain elements of it that the kink community didn't like, which was fair enough. It did give a slightly wrong message out, but it certainly showed that it could also be a lot of fun. And it was quite funny because the people that we had coming in to buy these products into our shops at that point, the wives weren't coming, or the girlfriends weren't coming. They would send the boyfriends and the husbands in to go and get this stuff. And we'd have this ongoing joke, and it went on for quite a long time. Guys would walk in and they'd never even been into a sex shop before. And they walk in, they'll look around, and they've got a little, almost like a little list
Shopping
in their
list.
Shopping list.
Eggs, milk, handcuffs.
Well, there's a love egg thing that's used, that's mentioned in the book, and they would go, do you have? And we go, love eggs. And they go, yeah. And then we go, and and a blindfold. And they go, yeah. And they go, 50 Shades of Grey. He went, yeah. How did you know that? I mean, you've been sent here. Yeah. 50 Shades of Grey. And they had literally 50 Shades of Grey shopping list. If that wasn't good for the industry, I don't know what was. And for kink in general, it was amazing.
Yeah, it put it on the map.
Allowed
people
put
to
it on the map.
try it and not feel like they're dirty underground or whatever misconceptions they had about it.
Yeah. And there's been other films since, even recently, that still kind of have that,
Yeah, we just watched Pillion and...
Right, I'm not seeing that. What's it like?
Same issues. Same issues. I mean, it misses the conversation about consent negotiation completely. Right?
Again.
It looks like how did you describe it, Cole? An emotionally...
It's about an emotionally damaged person who abuses someone else who just wants to be loved. It's not about a healthy dom-sub relationship at all. It's a shame.
Right, great.
I mean, it feels like such a disrespect to the industry that I found myself wondering, how kink adjacent are these filmmakers? Are they observers of kink from the outside? Would they have engaged people inside the kink world? Because it's like a fundamental thing to get wrong about kink. And it plays into the tropes, right?
It just buys into this narrative that people think about kink.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about how kink is becoming a bit more mainstream. Some of these films have put kink on the map, right? Even though they miss out some of the fundamentals around consent and negotiated dynamics.
It would be interesting to go up to younger people and go, what does a safe word mean? Right. And I would imagine most of them would know what that is. I would imagine most of them would know what that is. Really, that's it. If you've got a safe word, which means if I say this, you stop. Yeah. That's the barest minimum of thing that you could have in that situation. Yep. A safe word or a non-verbal signal to say stop. As long as you've got that word or hand signal which is like stop, then everyone should be safe.
Yeah. I feel like there can be a lot of risks in these spaces because they're quite vulnerable spaces, right? And that you're thinking about it from a woman's perspective, you're putting yourself potentially in some quite risky scenarios where you might not feel safe, and being able to first build some trust with somebody might be important before you kind of start to explore and unpack more kinky scenarios.
You're talking about meeting someone online here. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think most people are dating in this way now in
generally they are
in the mainstream world. Yeah.
I mean, there are many things that you can do in that situation. I would have a conversation, a FaceTime conversation. I would then send a list of, not as many as you had, 300. Oh my God, I wouldn't give someone 300 questions.
Send them a spreadsheet.
Never want to speak to me again.
No one's got time for that.
But send them a list of, yes, no's, would you like this? Which they then return back to me.
Right.
And then meet them in a safe place like a cafe before we go and play.
Mm-hmm.
There can be another way of doing it is where you can actually reference someone and say, look, speak to this person who has played with me. They will tell you what I'm like. So you can literally have a reference point.
Yeah.
So, but I'm always interested about how the certain online apps that there are, how would you absolutely like blue tick a dom? How could you have a verified blue tick safe? What would that look like? How would you get that? Would you be interviewed? Would you have to send some references in?
Some reviews.
Some reviews. Look, go on Slap Advisor. It's really, really like that. How would you do it? But but how wonderful and how useful tool that would be if that existed in the online kink dating area.
And of course, people are exploring this in relationships of different depths, right? But one thing I've always found quite surprising is when people are open to kinks and to playing in those ways without having established a lot of that trust early. And I think it can look different for different people, right? Some people feel like the yes, no, maybe dynamic outlined and negotiated together is enough for them to kind of go there. And for other people, reaching that subspace or that dom space is really built on kind of shared intimacy that's created together.
Absolutely.
I've also noticed that sometimes you can have relationships that can be very much centered around the power dynamics that you both play, and people can switch too, right? They don't always have to have the same role that they play.
Absolutely.
And then other times you can have connections where the power dynamic just isn't a part of your thing.
That's right. Which is why some people have, partners and then they have play partners because they're a different dynamic and different relationship.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, of course.
It just really makes sense to have the sub be the actual one in charge, to be really, first of all, have trust with whoever you're with, however you develop that trust, and then just make sure that the sub is leading the pace, right? Whatever that looks like, if it's safe words or other means of communication you have between the two of you. It makes sense to me. And the dom is sort of facilitating that experience.
As the dominant, you are just being trusted,
Right.
And that submissive person who is in that submissive role is handing over so much trust to you to be able to take care of him or her in that situation and know that they're safe and you've got them. Because the thing is, guys, if they don't have that anyway, they're not going to enjoy it. If you're not entirely trusting the person that you're with and you're a little bit on edge, you're not going to get into any kind of subspace, and you're just going to be a little bit too wary of what's happening next. And that's why that if you have a dominant and submissive relationship where that trust has been built over a period of time, I don't think you're going to get it overnight. You're not.
Yeah.
But when it's been built up and built up and built up, that person can then get onto a cross or lie on a spanking bench and within a few seconds be completely relaxed because they know the person that they are with is completely trustworthy. And we respect their safe words and their boundaries and the hard yeses and the hard no's.
I mean, if I were to just reflect on times in my sexual history where I've dabbled in dom-sub dynamics, the reasons I haven't enjoyed it is when the trust wasn't there. And I really didn't know how much I could trust my partner. And so, of course, I wasn't into it at all because I had no idea how safe I was. So, of course, that was the missing element.
Right.
It seems obvious to say it out loud, but you got to make sure that's there first. You got to lay the foundations.
Yeah, because without that, it's going to be a tough experience.
Well, I guess related to that, when you say CNC, I think that stands for what? Consensual non-consent? Is that
consensual non-consent? Yeah.
And can you tell me how that's different from all the other sorts of kink we've been talking about? What distinguishes that?
Well, it's when it's a little bit of a minefield when it comes to like safe words and stuff like that. So basically it's when no means yes. And it's normally in a scene where someone is saying, no, I don't want you to touch me. No, don't do that to me. But actually what they're saying is touch me, do that to me, hold me down. I'm going to fight against you. I'm going to struggle against what you're doing to me, but it's part of the role play scene.
Right.
It's the scene you're playing out.
It's a scene you're playing out. So it's consent, no consent. No, stop. Don't touch me. Get off of me. Leave me alone. And obviously where, a safe word is so important.
Sure.
Because it has to be, it's not no, it's not get off me, it's not stop. It has to be something really random, like, sunshine. or, or something that is such an
Peanut
unusual
butter.
thing to...
Yeah, something that
Peanut
wouldn't
butter.
fit that scene that you're enacting, I guess,
Right.
right?
Yes, so that's when a safe word is absolutely imperative, because until that safe word is called, you're going to just push ahead and push ahead and push ahead in that scenario and scene that you'd have already negotiated before anyway.
Yep.
The context of what it's going to be and what that person would like. Also, I'm prepared to do and what I'm not prepared to do, because it works both ways.
Yes.
There's some things
Yes.
that I am not prepared to do, which don't sit with me particularly well. So, and I'll go, no, I'm not really down with that. But how about that? Okay, we'll do that. It's kind of we'll find a little compromise there. So yeah, it's a more edgiest type of play.
Right.
Yeah, well, but just like any of these other kinks we've talked about, it's about communication ahead of time and then having that safe word. Instead of playing with a paddle, you're playing with wordplay and roles. But to me, it seems very similar.
Yes.
The more you talk about beforehand, the better it can be and the safer it can be.
And the rules still apply. The rules still apply, but it's just a different type of play.
And I can understand why somebody who doesn't understand the role of consent negotiation in kink would be really scared by the idea of consensual non-consent, and also by the idea of things like choking, which are becoming more and more kind of mainstream, I would say. I don't know if that's fair to say. But these things are talked about more often. And I think as a woman in the dating world, you're already worried about safety. You're already worried about consent, just in everyday experiences. And then you add in some of these more extreme experiences. I think it's pretty natural that you would become a bit more hypervigilant and a bit more worried, Tim, in your experience, do you find that it's mostly women who are submissive, or do you see more and more men open to the idea of stepping into submissive roles as well?
There is definitely, without a doubt, more professional female dominance than there are male dominance.
Huh.
Yeah. By thousands. There are very few in the UK, very few real full-on professional making a living out of being dominant. You can probably count on one hand if that's it. Now, but dominatrixes, on the other hand, there are thousands.
So does that imply there's more sub men, or are they just the ones seeking out services, I guess?
Exactly. They're seeking out services, and I think generally that women submissives would think twice about paying for a service that, where I think men are quite happy to pay for services like that.
Yeah.
And then we can get into that whole thing. Are these men, in super powerful jobs and in control of everything? Are they these lawyers, barristers and judges of this cliche, situation? They want to just let go and completely be submissive to a dominant. Is that their release?
Yeah.
Can't blame them.
Can't blame them. And you know what? There's a lot of truth to be said behind that, even though I find, the people that I have played with are generally hard-working, quite stressful jobs, working really hard, in control of everything in their lives. But when with me, they're not. And they also use it as a huge stress release from their work, where they can just go, so that's there as well. People show up to this for many different reasons.
Yeah, I found that really interesting, like the way that dopamine spikes work with the whole anticipation piece, right? We talked about that earlier around how your body experiences anticipation, but also like some of the nervous system regulation that you can experience through kink, where you can like just totally submit and let go. You don't need to be thinking, your body doesn't need to be hypervigilant because you've built the trust. And also there's some kind of catharsis to just allowing somebody else to be in control and just,
absolutely,
being guided through an experience safely.
And there is a release. There is can be a huge emotional release. A play partner of mine that I play with quite regularly actually ends up crying at the end of the session. And when she gets to tears, I know that we're done. Because that's where she wanted to get to. And it's not, she's not crying because she's upset. It's just an emotional release from her week, her month.
There's a catharsis that you help her reach.
Absolutely. And I remember the first time it happened, she turned around to me, she went, I'm getting quite emotional actually. And she didn't actually know what was going on for her, and I was like, it's fine, don't worry. And then she just started crying. And and that's when we have a hug and we drop into aftercare.
Yeah, I'd really love to talk about that actually, because this happened to me once in a really unexpected situation, and my instinct was to kind of bury my face a little bit. But it all happened, the emotional experience all happened quicker than I could think about what to do about it. So it was just kind of there, you know. It reminded me of how critical aftercare is. And I think for me before then, it was a bit more of an afterthought of it would be nice to have that. But in this instance, it really felt like actually this is essential right now.
Absolutely essential. And the thing is that I'd always say that if any time you are having any kind of conversation with anyone in a dom submissive play session or whatever, if the dominant does not talk about, you know, consent, boundaries, safe words, if they don't talk about aftercare, then that's a red flag, you know, because aftercare is imperative after you've had a BDSM session. And what does that look like for you? You know, I've had one person said, I need to be left alone, you know, which is fine. You know, they just wanted to process and be left on their own. Other people just as a hot bath, a cuddle, hot chocolate, a specific chocolate in some context, you know, and held. You can't have a session with someone like that, say over the space of 2 hours, can become quite intense. Depending on what the narrative is, can be verbally quite intense, depending on what that person has requested. You know, there can be some degradation in there if that's what that person has wanted. So you can't go from doing all of that, being verbally degrading, for instance, in some context, because there are many layers to what happens in a one-on-one BDSM kink session. It can include some consensual non-consent, some verbally degrading stuff can go on. You can't just finish that and go, anyway, nice to see you. I'll be stay in touch and just walk out the door. Right. Or just get them an Uber, you know, take their ball gag out and get them an Uber. I mean, it's just not like, it just doesn't work like that.
No,
you know? And you know, I think the aftercare should be as important as the actual session itself, and probably similar length of time as what you've been doing there to what you do when you're caring for someone afterwards. Because otherwise, it's just not healthy way to end something like that.
It's the intensity as well, right? I mean, Cole and I often talk about like aftercare and what that looks like in, you know, straight scenes versus gay scenes, and like what the differences are, and like how it can feel to experience something really intense and then not feel kind of comforted and held. And for me, it's something about like the strength of that touch as well, or something like that, you know. And
you could also feel a bit quite used as well, which is you know, this is not what we want. We don't want someone to feel like they've been used and abused. That's kind of like what the general public's idea of kink and dungeons and doms. Oh, yeah, it's just about being aggressive and being used and abused. That's kind of what people think who don't really know, who are not educated around this space.
And it's what you see in the movies too, like Pillion, like we talked about. I mean, as far as I can tell, in mainstream gay culture, the word aftercare barely even exists or even registers.
Wow.
I think it plays into this whole thing that sex is sexier the less you talk about it. And if you're into like these BDSM dynamics, then the less intimacy, the better. But you've got it all twisted. And I think it's a huge missing piece of at least how a lot of gay men approach this. So I hope
that's really interesting. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I hope I'm wrong, but I've only learned about aftercare by talking with straight friends about their sex lives.
Yeah.
I mean, with me, obviously, I am with a female who, you know, I have, you know, affection for, connection with. So I would naturally do that. Hold her and care for her, because that's just in me to do that.
Yeah, it's a loving thing. Yeah,
it's a loving thing, particularly after what has just gone on for the last 2 hours. You know, but maybe man on man just don't have that kind of care. Is it?
I think there's a culture piece too. I think when a culture has been established, then it propagates, and if the culture is treating each other like bodies to use and abuse rather than people to engage with intimately, then that's the culture that continues. I really think it's more about transaction and using each other, unfortunately.
I mean, the gay sex scene is very different to the straight sex scene.
It is, yeah, you know, in a lot of ways.
It's a lot more hookup. I mean, we don't have a grinder. We don't have a grinder for straight, you know, grinder.
Wait, isn't that what Tinder is?
I don't know. I don't know. I've never been on Tinder. You know what? No, but their Grindr's a little bit more like it's quick to the action. Is it not, Cole?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Proximity to the next.
Wham bam, thank you, sir. That is definitely the modus operandi.
Yeah. Where Tinder is a date. Tinder's like, I'll meet you at a bar. Let's have some drinks. Let's go and have a curry. Grindr, I think, is a little bit more quicker. I don't think you bother with dinner and drinks, do you, Cole?
There's a lot less curry on Grindr. That's for sure.
I do know because I had a friend of mine who was on it. He was on Grindr and he was like, oh yeah, I'm going now. I was like, where are you going? And I'm just going to go on the corner, and, And he came back like 45 minutes later, right? And he like met this guy. I had sex with him, and then he was back in the bar, And I was like, wow.
45 minutes is a long time. I thought you were going to say like 15 minutes. That sounds like there was time for aftercare. I mean, geez. Well done to him.
Yeah.
Anyway, clearly there's clearly some stark differences.
Yeah, very is that, they're very different. And I think that may be that's probably a safety thing for women as well, because that's another element to it. I think we all have that thing where we would quite like to be able to just go like that Grindr, like my friend did on Grindr. And meet someone, even as heterosexual, straight, whatever you want to call it, but curious, whatever it might be. That I think when it comes to men, where they're a little bit safer, man on man, than a woman meeting a guy on a corner, and I think there's probably a huge safety thing there.
Yeah, it's a big factor. Yeah, still not. I think still protections and checks and balances get bulldozed past, and people could do a much better job making sure they're staying safe. So it's not like Anyways,
I did have a friend who, funny enough, not a different friend, who got himself in a quite dangerous situation on Grindr, turning up to do a kink thing, and he felt very unsafe and feared for his life at one point. And in fact, he came off of it and he never went back on it again.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's it. You still got to lay down the foundations of trust, regardless.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Tim, is there anything that you feel like we haven't covered about kink that you wish people understood better?
I think the myths about being dominant is not about complete power over someone. It's not about aggression. It's not about violence. In fact, it's about, for me, I don't know about other guys, but for me, it's about holding space with love, care, connection, and tenderness, even along with all that other stuff that goes on. The narrative behind that is love, care, connection, and tenderness, and holding their space. Completely listening to their desires, listening to what they want, most importantly, listening to what they don't want, which is a huge conversation I have even before we walk into that space. That it is an exciting journey to have. You'd be amazed at what you can find out. I heard of this girl went to this sex party once and got on the cross with the dungeon, and now she's doing it all the time because she really liked it.
I've heard rumors. I have a friend who that happened to also. Yeah.
Did you? Yeah, it's quite interesting.
I know her.
It's beautiful to hear.
And I love to hear that. And thank you I was pleased I was part of the beginning of your journey into experimenting and doing that, and in the safe space that you felt safe enough to do that with me. You open up a tiny little door that you don't realise exists. It's a bit like parenthood. I mean, what an analogy that is.
What an analogy,
what a connection.
Yeah. What a connection. But, before I become a father to my first child, when I become a father, I opened up a door in me that I never ever knew existed about being a parent and loving unconditionally another person. And I think kink is another thing, and it's a dreadful analogy to make, but, I'm sure we make doors within us. They're doors that we can open up.
Yes.
That we probably don't know.
I'm following.
Yes.
You're following.
We're here.
Parts of us and doors that we open up that we're not aware of that actually exist until we open them up and have a little look inside. And I think that once you do have a look inside, particularly around kink and play, then you'd be surprised actually what you quite like and what you really are into. You don't know until you know.
That's right.
I love that you're saying that you're centering love, connection, intimacy, and tenderness, because the world does not associate those words with kink. So to say that that's actually the heart of it all says a lot, and I think it's really important, but also just completely makes sense after this conversation.
But yet that's me, Cole. That's the way I approach it. Everyone is different, but for me, that's what goes on for me within what I do.
Yeah,
I mean, I
it
think
makes sense.
for me, it really connects to this idea that it should be shameful. You know, I was really curious to follow that thread and like, well, why? What's shameful about it? And that kind of led the curiosity into discovering things that were hugely surprising. And I think that is a beautiful thing that I really took away from my kink experience, and that I would really encourage other people who are like sitting on the fence to explore is like, what is it about any kind of kink that makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable? And where have you gotten that belief from?
It can also be about different types of sex, not necessarily kink as well.
Yes, it could be. Yeah, exactry.
Can be in vanilla. Can be in vanilla. Shame can still be there as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
You don't have to tell us. Nyla and I.
You don't have to be kinky to have shame around anything to do with sex.
Exactly. I mean, at the very basic level is just embracing the fact that you can experience pleasure and you're allowed to experience pleasure, and that that is a beautiful part of your inner life force and vitality in life, and it's an expression of your childlike joy. Can
Absolutely.
also be expressed through your sexual energies. And that actually in everyday life, we get taught to separate these from, our work persona and our parent persona. And actually, we've got one psyche and it's all holistic.
Yeah.
The idea that we are all these multiple people, I think, is a little bit of a fallacy.
There's always the role playing. There's always the role. I mean, what role playing did you do as a child? Whether it be cowboys and Indians, doctors, nurses, playing shop, and enjoying stepping into these roles that we're not really. I'm not really a shopkeeper. I used to have I used to have a little post office when I was a kid. I used to really enjoy being a postman. But it's like we're just playing.
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
just adult role playing. We're playing around. That's all we're doing.
Right.
And I
and
think
that's what the dungeon is, right? It's the adult playground.
Play space, playground, whatever you want
He
to
used
call
to
it.
run a post office. Now he runs a dungeon. It's a beautiful journey.
But no, it's literally that. It is a play space and an adult play. We're playing play partner, play space, play. Keep it light. Let's not take this too seriously,
Right.
Well, we have gone twice as long as we anticipated, so it's probably time for us to wrap. Just for me to say, Tim, I am ready to go find a feather and a dungeon and maybe start testing my limits. So I will be sure.
Come on, Cole.
I'll be sure to report back on my progress. So thank you for giving me the nudge I needed.
Thank you.
This has been fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Likewise.
Tim. What a full circle moment to come back to you after a few years. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, lovely to see you again. Lovely to meet you both. Thank you for having me as a guest on this great podcast of yours. Really
Amazing.
Hopefully we can meet in person someday. Maybe we'll bump into each other at one of these parties with a cross, Let's see.
Or on Grindr, Cole, you never know.
I think we can both broaden our horizons. I think that's the takeaway. Try everything.
Love it.
Maybe I already have.
Ooh.
Hey, that's what I like to hear.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Beautiful.
See you
Talk
soon.
to you soon.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
He was great. Ugh, I miss him already.
I loved him. He's just fab.
I mean, when you and Tim and I had a conversation ahead of this, and you were talking about how you first met each other, it's definitely the most interesting round of introductions I've ever had on a Zoom call.
I love it. I love it. So what were your main takeaways from the chat? What do you feel like you know about kink now that maybe you didn't before we started?
This whole concept of subspace is quite new to me, and how it's almost a way of getting some sort of high from just the complete release of control and giving yourself over to a new sort of sensation. My big takeaway is that Dom-sub play is the Dom facilitating an experience for a sub who's actually in control. And the sub is really deciding just how far they're willing to go and what they're comfortable with. And I really loved hearing him say that for him, at the heart of it is tenderness and connection and love.
Care, yeah.
And care.
Not words people associate with kink, right?
But it makes sense. I mean, a Dom wants to facilitate a powerful experience for the sub. And I guess the other thing that came up, I'm throwing around these labels, but this is not any sort of label a person needs to take on and embrace for the rest of their life. Like, I'm a Dom, I am a sub. We're talking about the roles people play in a particular encounter. What's the word? In a scene. In a scene, thank you. But a person can be versatile. They can even switch. They can experiment. So
There
I
might
guess
not even
for
be power dynamics as part of the
scene.
power dynamics might not even play a part in another relationship you have. It's very intimate
Yeah.
between two people, right? That is unique to the two of you.
Totally. I guess as someone who's always felt like a bit of a vanilla and not even known where he would dip his toes, so to speak, it makes me feel actually a little more emboldened. I don't need to know ahead of time. I am allowed to play this a safe arena for me to maybe play in the sandbox, play in the dungeon sandbox. What about you?
I mean, so a few things, right? First of all, that the most misunderstood thing about kink and dungeons and power dynamics and all of these things is just that it's ethical and there's consent and there's negotiation at play, right? You don't just ride into the kind of extreme stuff off the bat. Secondly, for me, I feel like a huge part of the motivation is about building and deepening intimacy with somebody, right? So like trust is already established between you. You feel like you have each other's back, and then being able to step into these altered states, the dom space, the subspace, and being led intuitively by this beautiful energy that exists between two people, and exploring how to be playful with each other and how to step into different ways of playing with each other, right? I think there's something really beautiful about that, and it's such a shame that it's shrouded in shame.
Totally.
But I like the fact that actually underneath it all is something really tender and connecting and beautifully intimate. And I think that's my experience of unpacking what it means to explore kink. I feel like kink needs a rebrand in some ways, in the mainstream. Like
Agreed. Well, that was another big takeaway for me is how important communication is. And then if you communicate ahead of time, you can broaden the potential for pleasure and experience. And that is so easily applied to the most vanilla sex, because again, you might enjoy playing with power dynamics, even in the slightest way in quote unquote vanilla sex. But just think what can happen if you actually start communicating about that ahead of time.
Oh my gosh,
your limits, your interests. Just think how much you can elevate the most mundane vanilla sexual experience by those same principles.
Right. And I think one of the things that we didn't touch on in the conversation, surprisingly, this didn't come up, but one of the biggest myths is about how a lot of neurodivergent people are drawn to kink. And actually, the research doesn't really suggest that it's because they're broken or traumatized in any way, and that's why they're drawn to kink. But often it's because the ambiguity has been taken out of the situation, right? And actually, the thinking doesn't need to exist because you've already done that ahead of time. And you've laid on the table what you're open to and what you're not open to. I can really see and understand why a lot of neuroatypical brains are drawn to this kind of release and relief that comes with the upfront clarity negotiation.
That makes sense. The really complex, minute negotiations that might happen before sex can be really difficult for neurodivergent people. But, by the same token, I guess what I was saying before, those micro negotiations are difficult for anyone.
They are.
And just the power of communication can help any of us.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that. Well, what a great chat. What a great conversation today. I'm so glad we brought him on the show.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Let's see, do we want to leave our listeners with any questions for their own reflections? I think about where your own shame around any of these topics you've heard discussed might creep in, and what are some very small ways you can discuss them with your partner or push yourself out of those little shame corners that might be holding you back. And just have fun. I think that was the other thing. Tim really emphasized that this is fun. The way that he tries to get someone to laugh before stringing them up to a cross is because actually this is about having fun. And so let's keep that in mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
Being tied up to a torture device in a dungeon is all about fun, kids. And you remember that.
Well, also, we don't have to like the same things, right? So, take baby steps.
Absolutely.
Just think about what you're curious about, what makes you smile or giggle a little bit, and just try it. And then, take another step if you want to. And if you don't like something, you don't like it. That's how it goes. If you think about how kids play, right? We're just adults playing here. So let's try and apply some of the same principles of let's suck it and see.
Did you just say, let's suck it and see?
Isn't that an everyday phrase? No?
If you're a 6-month-old or yes. Or a
60-year-old.
Beautiful. What beautiful words to close on, Nyla. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and stay just a little bit deviant.
Bit deviant.
Love it.
Bye, folks.
Thanks, everyone. Talk soon.
Bye.